Hey Spuddies, Potato McWhiskey here, and welcome to Age of Wonders 4 Overexplained, a tutorial series where we are going to get down into the nitty gritty and talk about every single bit of the game that I understand. Now this tutorial is directly aimed at people who play single player, not multiplayer. You'll have to go and check out Winslayer. Maybe Morbus will put a link to his channel somewhere on screen or a picture. Winslayer does a whole bunch of multiplayer stuff. Go check him out if you want to learn about the multiplayer. This is going to be about single player. So, this is the Realm setup screen. Now, my recommendation actually, when you're starting a new game, is to just pick a different landmass and then that's it. Don't mess around with any of these modifiers. You're not ready for that. You should play the standard game first, where you're going to be able to encounter as wide a variety of situations as possible. My personal recommendation is either coast or continents. Continents and coast are both totally fine. I'm going to play continents today because that's the default, so I'm just going to play a totally standard, totally default game. Standard player distance, 7 players. I am going to bump the difficulty up to hard. Well, no, I've changed my mind. I'm going to play on normal so that I can teach you more about the game. I'm just not going to change it. I'm just going to be hard difficulty. One thing I am going to do, though, is I will say that the AI cannot use custom rulers, just so you can get a feel for the default factions. Now, I have built a faction for this. This is the faction of the Dark Felines, ruled by Darth Meow Meow. It is a feline race with quick reflexes. I took quick reflexes because I wanted to play a very shock infantry heavy gameplay style where I rush up into people's faces and I hit them where it hurts, and I really get into people's faces with a lot of heavy infantry, heavy cavalry, all that kind of thing. So by having a little bit of resistance to ranged attacks, it significantly lowers the amount of damage I'm going to take when people shoot at me. We are also elusive, which should allow us to more easily break out of other people's opportunity attacks, their retaliation attacks, so we won't take as much damage when we get counterattacked. Now we're going to be relying heavily on shock units, so counterattacks are not going to be very common, but when they do happen, we want to be ready for it. We're going to be playing the Dark Culture because that's what people voted for. I'm not super familiar with the Dark Culture, but I feel confident enough in the game itself that I can play this. They are by default evil culture, so we are going to be taking as well with the society traits, because we are Shadow, we're going to be taking the Scions of Evil, which will give us bonuses the more evil that we are. We will get 10 Draft, which is how fast you recruit your units, and 5 Imperium, which is used for a variety of important actions. We'll also get a lowered alignment. Our units will be recruited at a higher rank when we reach the maximum alignment of, I think it's minus 100 or higher. Shock units and shield units will have +1 rank, and we will start with an extra shock or shield unit. We'll also be taking Ritual Cannibals, so that we will get mana and food whenever we kill a unit based on the tier of the unit. So if we kill a tier 5 unit, we get 15 mana and 15 food. This will help us and allow us to sustain our army using combat, right? This will give us a little bit of food, a little bit of mana, so we can snowball by winning combats. And also it gives us the corpse eating ability, which is a pretty good snowball heal, because if you can get a kill on an enemy unit, you don't necessarily have to raise it as an undead. You can just eat that corpse as a free action and gain a little bit of momentum. So that's the idea behind there. Also, the Chaos Affinity is really nice because we will get a pretty early ability that will give us a reduction in our tier 1 unit costs, and getting out as many tier 1 units in the early game is a very good way to build up your power level. Now, we're going to be playing on the Tome of Souls here, which is all about the undead, mostly about soul harvesting, about shadow affinity, about collecting the souls of our enemies, and then doing things to people who are soulbound, spending souls to recruit and improve certain units. So we're also going to be playing as a champion, and that will give us an extra 10% gold and 20% city stability, and our units will level up faster. We also get relation boost with free cities, and so that is why we're going to be playing the Darth Meow Meow faction. Very much so a faction oriented around getting up and into people's faces and killing them. So if you're wondering what we have, this is what we have, and our starting spell will be Ice Shackles as well as Soulfire. Now, let's take stock of the current situation. We are in Kinslayer, which is our capital. I will be renaming my capital to Cardboard Box, which is a cat's favorite place to be. We have quite a few things that we're going to need to explain about the game and what we're going to be doing. These are my armies. This is a scout unit. Scout units are high speed, they have a high movement speed of 40, and they have the far sight ability, which gives them extra vision range. The domain, the dark scout unit, has the infiltrate ability, which gives them +2 vision when they're in enemy terrain, so they can see even further when they're inside one of my enemies' domain. This is quick reflexes and elusive. These are very weak units that typically don't get much better, but they're good for scouting and finding resources on the map. My recommendation is don't actually bother manually scouting, just click auto explore and let them do it themselves. There is some optimization you can do with exploring yourself, but I don't think you necessarily have to worry about that. Now, this right here is my main army. When I click on them and I hover over, you can see the yellow sphere, the yellow circle of hexes here that we can reach. This is how far they can move in a single turn. So I can reach any of these tiles inside the yellow box in just one turn. Now, I'm going to do something a little bit unorthodox here. I'm considering recruiting another hero, but I think I'm going to wait for that for a moment. But yeah, I right down here, this is the army panel. I have a hero, I have a battle mage unit. Each symbol corresponds to a type of unit. Battle mages are ranged magical users. They typically have a ranged magical attack that repeats and then a ranged magical special attack that does some sort of special effect. This right here is a shock unit. They are really good at countering shield units, but they are countered by polearm units. Very good at getting in and doing damage. Then this is a pursuer. It is a ranged unit, which is just a ranged physical unit. They sometimes have special abilities. Tier 1 units typically lack special abilities, although sometimes they can have them. The very first thing I'm going to do with managing my city is tell you about the city yields. Right here is food. Food is used to grow population. The more food you have, the faster a city grows. The more population you have, the more food they eat. This right here is production. Production is used to build city structures. City structures give you a variety of benefits. For example, the experimentation chambers here gives me 5 knowledge and 5 gold. This is draft. Draft is used to recruit units. For example, this dark warrior here takes 80 draft to recruit. The outrider, on the other hand, only takes 60 draft down here. So this is to grow population, this is to build buildings, and this is to recruit units. Then we have the empire-wide resources. Okay, so you have local resources that only matter for the local city, and then you have empire-wide resources that matter for your empire. Gold is an empire-wide resource that's used to pay for things, it's used to recruit armies, it's used to upkeep armies, it's used for a whole variety of events, technologies, bonus, it's used for basically everything. And then you've got mana, which is just like magical gold. It is used for casting spells, summoning units. Basically, anything magical in the game is going to have some sort of interaction with mana. And then you have knowledge, which is used for learning new spells and new skills from your tomes of magic. That's something we'll talk about a little bit later. We have Imperium, which is obviously used for a whole bunch of different things, and that we'll have to talk about when we actually get to it. So in terms of decision making, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, I'm going to zoom out my map slightly. I'm going to take stock of which resource nodes are unoccupied near my capital. So I have an iron deposit here and a pasture here. So maybe I'll build a farm on the pasture, or maybe a lumber mill. Ooh, I could do a really strong growth build, right? If I build a lumber mill, because if I build a lumber mill, that will boost the storehouse here, making it 30% cheaper to build, both in terms of gold. This will be cheaper in terms of gold, and it will be cheaper in terms of production. This 130 production will get reduced to like 70, not 70, it'll be 90 something. Don't remember, like 91 production, something like that anyway. So yeah, it'll be built a lot faster if we can build a lumber mill, plus the lumber mill will provide a tiny little chunk of gold, a tiny little bit of food, and then a pasture will provide food, and then if I get the storehouse as well, I'll grow really quickly and I can claim all these tiles nearby and build up my city really quickly. That's kind of the opening moves that I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and just produce merchandise for a single turn. That'll generate me 5 gold, just so I can boost the storehouse. I'm also going to immediately start the production of a new pursuer. No, I should totally get a second, no, I should get a third dark warrior. I was going to produce a pursuer, but I'm going to go for the dark warrior instead. And then in terms of things that I want to clear, I'd like to clear this. This is a production stockpile. I would like to clear this when I actually have a building under construction in my capital. So I'm going to wait a turn before I do that. And instead, I'm going to come over here and attack this NPC army of the Marauder Guard that is guarding the mana node resource node. Resource nodes exist inside provinces. The entire map is broken up into a variety of provinces that have resources and terrain inside of them. This province right here, adjacent to my capital city, is a grassland forest terrain that has a pasture inside of it. I can build a farm here, I can build a lumber mill here, whereas for example over here, this is just a grassland forest that doesn't have a pasture. This one is a forest, so I can only build a lumber mill, or because it has a mana node, I can build a conduit or a research station. Conduits give you mana, research stations give you research. These are all really important concepts for us to understand as we move forward. Let's go ahead and attack this army. So we attack an army by moving towards it and right-clicking. We move our unit over, we hover over their thing, and then we attack them. And then that red circle that appears, that dictates which units are going to reinforce the battle. If I take my scout here, and you'll notice when I hover over my enemy, the scout's flag doesn't change. But if I were to move my scout one tile to the left so that it's inside the red circle of combat, and now when I hover over it, you'll see my scout's flag will bounce up and down, indicating that it has been called to battle. I can still choose when I initiate the battle to say, actually scout, I don't want you to participate, but I will allow the scout to participate, and since this is just 2 little warriors, I could probably auto-combat this and get a win without any losses. However, I'm going to go ahead and fight it manually, just so I can talk a little bit about actual combat. It's generally better if you can fight combat manually, especially in the early game, so that you can minimize the amount of damage that you take and maximize the efficiency of your combat troops. Because damaged units are more likely to die, and losing units early game is actually a really big loss. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push all my units together forward in a very gentle approach. I'll also try to bait them in to attack my scout over here. They typically get very hungry to attack scouts, and then I will just back off. Now, what we want to do is we only want to occupy zones where they will only get a single attack if they approach us. So I'm going to put my shock unit here. I'll move you 1 tile to the left. I'll put my shock unit here. I'll move my hero behind, my warlock to here, and my archer to here, and then I'll allow the archer to take a single shot, which should provoke them to come forward, but then I'm going to inflict slowed with magic. Anyway, you can left click a unit to select it, you right click to move it. Units have a variety of actions they can perform. They have action points. The more action, like, how do I explain this? You see this guy here, this anvil guard, he's got 3 action points. Every time he steps a couple of tiles, his number of action points depletes, and he will need action points to actually take actions. So you can see here, if he were to run forward, he would only melee strike once. But if my unit was like closer, let's say I moved this warrior forward a tile, then instead of doing 7 damage, he would run forward and actually have 2 action points on this tile and attack twice to do 14, which is why you want to try to just very carefully navigate and negotiate. Down here in the bottom right, these are your spells. I'm going to go ahead and cast an Ice Shackles, which is a tier 1 damage and debuff spell that does 14 frost damage and slows the enemy. So boom, we do that. Now slowed is an effect that slows their movement. It gives them the slow movement debuff, which means now he can't move quite as fast or far. So now he can only move 2 tiles before he runs out of action. So hopefully that is starting to show off the whats and the whys and the whos and the hows and bits and bobs of combat. So they're going to approach me and attack me. They do get a primal strike, so they do a decent amount of damage, but that's not important. I'm going to go ahead and use the Sundering Curse ability on this guy over here. The Sundering Curse will do 24 damage. It's also doing 2 lightning damage because I'm standing adjacent to this pylon. Pylons give the magically charged ability, which gives them +2 damage on all magical attacks. Now, I could use a weakening bolt strike here, right? And I would do 30 damage, or I can do 26 damage and also remove 2 stacks of bolstered defense and potentially sunder my enemy's defense. The lower an enemy's defense is, the more damage they take. You can see here, this guy's defense is at 6, so he's taking 47% less damage from physical attacks. However, his resistance is only 0, so he has no reduction in magical ability. So if I come in here and I cast Sundering Curse on him and I completely sunder away all of his stats, then if I hover over here, and now you can see his physical damage reduction is only 34%. So we went from him taking half of damage to taking 2/3 of it, which is actually a 20% increase in the amount of damage that he is now taking. Very important piece of information to note, because that means he's now taking a lot more damage. He also has Sundered Resistance, which means he's actually taking 10% more magical damage because he has negative resistance. Resistances can go negative, so that's something that's important, because now my hero can actually kill this guy very easily. He has the magical bolts ability. Now he is also a necromancer, so he can raise the undead, but we'll kind of talk about all those abilities later. But yeah, navigating and understanding what your units are capable of doing is very, very important. For example, I'm playing the Dark Culture, so my people have the Cull the Weak ability, which means they do 20% more damage to units with the weakened attribute. So if I hover over this and hold down, is it control? See, do you have weakened? No, you don't have weakened. So let me do this, right? If I shoot this guy, this archer has a chance to inflict the weakened debuff when he attacks. Now, weakened is a debuff that lowers an enemy's total damage. See, he's got 2 stacks of weakened, which now means my unit is getting the benefit from that Cull the Weak ability, so they're going to do more damage. Hopefully that kind of explains things. Anyway, we'll get the kill, the camera will slow down and do all sorts of cool stuff. Bish bash bosh. We have killed our first battle. Now, because we are playing a necromancer, we get a couple of souls, but we also get a little bit of food and a little bit of mana because of our cannibal ability. We're basically eating them. We also picked up 70 mana because we cleared a mana node, and we got an item, the Ring of the Vicious Killer, which inflicts double morale penalties when the unit wearing the ring kills an enemy. Units have 2 kinds of health. It's called, well, just health, which covers regular health and temporary health, and then morale, which is basically like a second health bar that you can damage indirectly with certain actions. Like a unit witnessing another unit dying will lower their morale, but a unit witnessing an enemy unit dying will increase their morale. So there's a whole landscape of decisions and understandings you have to make here. So let's talk about research. This is the research screen. After every 4 research cycles, we will get to pick a new tome from the library of tomes. Each of these tomes has a set of 3 to 6 abilities inside of it. So you can see here, the Tome of Evocation has a whole bunch of lightning-focused abilities. The Tome of Cycles is much more plant-based. The Tome of Zeal is all about inquisitions and control. The Tome of Cryomancy is all about ice and pain and nastiness, right? So that will hopefully give you an idea of what we're working with here. Every research cycle, you'll be presented with 3 of the options from your current pool of possible research. You will get to select one of those options, and then after you finish it, your options will be shuffled. You can shuffle the options yourself if you don't like your options, or you can potentially, like, let's say I really like this Soulbinder ability and I want to research it next. I can lock it in for 20 mana and then instead research Baneful Curse. Now, Baneful Curse is a really great debuff spell because it sunders people's resistance, meaning they take more damage, and it inflicts Weakened, which allows us to trigger Cold a Weak to do 20% more damage. So this will massively increase our capability of doing damage, but also our defensiveness because we're weakening our enemy as well. And I believe our units also get regeneration stacks if they attack a unit that's weakened. So there's a whole bunch of reasons that we're going to be taking Baneful Curse. Let's go ahead and end turn. And our scout automatically scouted and picked up 76 gold for us. Now, when you start the game, you're going to have 0 Imperium. After your first turn, you're going to have some Imperium in stock, and my recommendation would be to go to your capital city and click the Attract Population button. Once you attract a population, this way we don't have to wait 2 turns, we can immediately build a province improvement. We can improve a tile. Farms increase your farm income by 5 per turn. This farm will increase it by 15 because there's a pasture here. Lumber mills increase your food income by 2, and your production increased by 3. Mines increase your gold income by 5, but there's also an iron deposit here, so that'll be another 10 production. Quarries increase your production by 5. There's a couple of other ones that we'll talk about, but right now I want to get a lumber mill because I want to annex those pastures so my city grows faster. You can see my city went from growing in 4 turns to growing in 3 turns, and then I can build a storehouse in 4 turns instead of 7 after I've done that. And it's boosted, so instead of being 60 gold, it's only 42. So this is like a really efficient way to grow my city. And then I can immediately go into the library. In fact, when you're playing a dark build, in my opinion, you should go for the library first, because 10 knowledge income is a 15% increase in the rate of our research. And when you're playing undead, what you really want to get to is the 3rd undead book, because it contains a very powerful ability. The Tome of the Great Transformation has both Whiteborn, which makes all of your units undead and gives them lifesteal, as well as the Fetid Legion, which makes all of the melee units in your army have 10 extra hit points and the Weakening Aura, which weakens enemies' attacks every turn. Very, very cool, very powerful. So yeah, we'll be going for the Baneful Curse. Now that we have a building in queue, I'm going to go ahead and try to clear this gargoyle. Now, unfortunately, I can't actually reach that gargoyle this turn. I'm out of range. But here are things that you can do. You can, if you want, quick buy a unit. I can hurry the recruitment of this Dark Warrior, and then this Dark Warrior will be in range to claim that soul. So I can just move my army into reinforcement range, and when I attack, my army will be part of that battle. Bish bash bosh, very easy. I'm going to auto-resolve this battle just to save time, but I got 4 souls out of it, which is quite nice. Now, here is something very important to know. My unit is hurt. He has low health, but he's only going to regenerate 5 health per turn because he's outside of my territory. If I zoom in on this army and I see, oh, actually, this guy is hurt, but everyone else is fine, I'm going to click on this guy specifically, which will deselect everyone else. You can click on other units to select them as well, or you can then just like deselect. And I'm going to tell this guy to go back home inside my own domain, because units inside your domain heal much faster, 5 times faster. In fact, he's now going to heal 25 health per turn, which means he's practically going to be at full health next turn. And instead I can just move the rest of my stack forward to explore and see if we can find more stuff to find. Now I have a total of 6 units in my main army here, which I think is enough. So I'm going to come over to my city and then start recruiting an Outrider, which is a scout unit. And I'm going to use that scout unit to try to find more information. I would say it's a good ballpark to get at least 2 scout units. I would say most games are going to want 3. And if you can sustain 4, if you can get away with it, which we can because we have high draft and high gold, you can get away with 4. But I would be careful. At least 2, typically not more than 4, because you lose a lot of tempo to build scouts. Yeah, let's do a little bit of exploration with this guy. We do see a couple of interesting things here. We do see an ancient wonder over here, which is something we'll talk about when we actually get a chance to potentially clear it. You should be able to heal pretty quick. I am going to go ahead and move my main army over here. I would like to try to clear this NPC army. They are guarding another pasture. And now, the node that an enemy army is guarding, that is typically going to dictate the type of reward you get, right? These guys are guarding a food node, which means if I clear it, I will get food from my capital city. Just, that's the way it works. We finally have an empire development skill available. Empire development skills are going to be based on your affinities. There are 6 affinities. There is Shadow, Chaos, Materium, Astral, Order, Nature. This down here is the general affinity tree that you'll slowly build up no matter what, but the main affinity trees are the important things. As you acquire affinity, you will unlock new abilities as you go down the tree, getting all the way to the ultimate ability. For example, the Spying Shadow's ultimate ability is to fully reveal the world map and gain infinite sensing range. Very powerful. In contrast, for example, the Astral Binding ability makes all new magical origin units gain +3 ranks, which could be quite powerful for us since we are going to be summoning a lot of units, right? We're going to be summoning undead. You can see the skeleton here has, I believe, the magic origin trait. So that could be a good way for us to have like really strong skeletons. You know, you're starting to see how we might be able to piece together all these abilities. So I could get a free city overview for the city of Darkspire. Now, we have met another player, but it's not a player. This is a free city. This is a minor player in the game. These are independent cities that you can choose how you interact with them. You can choose to conquer them, or you can choose to be their friend. You be their friend by giving them a Whispering Stone. A Whispering Stone is a very limited resource that you typically only have 1 to 4 of, and most people are going to only ever get 2 in their games. You can get up to 4, I believe, but most of the time you're going to have 1 or 2. And you can give this to the city, which will slowly raise their allegiance. And if you can go through the allegiance steps and get all the way over here to a pact of vassalage, they will integrate into your empire as a vassal. It'll mean you don't have direct control over them, but they will join your wars, assist you in local combat, and potentially send raiding parties to enemy players. You can also choose to integrate them at a later date to bring them into your empire. That's honestly worth it to do with the one that you typically find early, because they tend to have some sort of special resource, like the Whispering Stone fruit here, the Silvertongue fruit, which is a special magical material resource. We'll have to talk about magical materials later, but I'm going to give these guys a Whispering Stone, and that will slowly bring up their allegiance with me. You can see here, allegiance per turn +3. Now I could also choose, if I really wanted to integrate these guys quickly, I could choose to boost the allegiance and half the amount of time that we would get to a pact of cooperation. It's not a completely terrible idea to do. Personally, I prefer to spend my early allegiance or my early imperium on increasing the population of my capital city. So I'm going to go ahead and attract a population here in the capital and then immediately build a quarry. And I'm going to build a quarry for a few reasons, because if I build a quarry here, I'll get 15 production, which will near basically double my production per turn, right? I'm making 24, so I'll go to 40 once I build this, which is quite a nice bump. Yeah, exactly 40, which now means I'm building buildings even quicker. You can see here, this tier 2 granary building is going to take 7 turns. Now remember, on the first turn, this workshop building was taking 7 turns. So you can kind of tell that we've massively increased the amount of production that we make. I would like to build the Arcane Institute for another 15 knowledge per turn, because I'm doing a little bit of a tech rush build here because I'm playing as the undead. And it's quite important as undead to a tech rush. I think that's a pretty important part of playing Shadow, is to get a lot of science. So the Arcane Institute is boosted, which is the tier 2 knowledge building. So I'm going to go ahead and build it ASAP. Now I also want to build the experimentation chambers at some point, because that also has knowledge, as well as the underground laboratory, which also has knowledge. So yeah, we're going to be pushing in a very knowledge heavy direction, because that's the way that this faction plays. Let's take this Outrider, and we're going to put him on auto explore as well. And then I'm going to recruit one more Outrider, because I do think that it's important that you get at least 3 scouts in most of your games. Let's go ahead and conjoin all these units together into a single stack, like so. And then I will take my leader, and unfortunately he doesn't have a mount right now, but if he did have a mount, I'd be able to do some really interesting stuff. We're going to take just the leader and tell him to attack here. I'm going to see how auto combat does. My leader took a nice chunk of damage, but leaders are, relatively tanky units, so I don't mind them taking a bit of damage. We collected 5 souls, we got 15 food and 15 mana. I'm going to go ahead and accept that combat, especially because a lot of these units actually leveled up. It's probably about time that I talked about veterancy. So your units are capable of leveling up. You can see here, at the basic rank, these guys will have 60 health, and that's it. However, every time they level up, they're going to get plus 4 health, which means they could end with plus 4, 8, 12, 16, 20 health, which is, what is that? That's about 30% more health than they usually have, which is pretty darn good. That's a very respectable amount of extra health. Also, if they get to the 3rd level, they'll get a damage boost, and if they get to the legend level, they'll get a boost to their critical hits. So yeah, keeping your units alive and leveling them up is quite important. It gives them that little bit of an edge of survivability. Very much so worth it. Different classes of units have different level ups. For example, this soldier over here, it gets a ability, if it would let me hover, it gets an ability called damage, and then it gets the eagle eye, which gives it extra +1 range. And I don't need to tell you, if you have a range of 4 and you get +1 range, that's a huge increase in your range. The warlock, on the other hand, they get damage and then evoker, and I think evoker lets you cast more spells in combat. I think. We haven't even talked about casting points or anything like that. That's mostly because we haven't actually researched a spell that has been worth casting. All right, let's keep exploring. So the main thing that we're looking for in the early game is a potential second city location. So you can have up to 3 cities when you start a game, unless you have a modifier to that. And you have your throne city. You typically have your first free city. And that's going to be 2 if I decide to integrate it, which I probably will this game. And then you want to look for like a 3rd place where I want to plant down a city. And this place over here is looking pretty okay, right? We have some kind of magical material in the Fog of War. We have some sort of resource here. And then we have an ancient wonder that we might be able to annex into the Empire. So this could all be like a very good spot for another city. It's kind of at the edge of the map, which I don't love. It is near what looks like to be a giant tree, which could also be quite good. My capital city can annex another province. This time I'm going to be annexing a farm. I'm going to annex a farm on this gold mine so that I can boost the experimentation chamber. That gold mine will also provide us with gold per turn. I want the experimentation chamber ASAP, so I'll go ahead and build that. And I also want to get the underground laboratory, so I will be getting a second farm as soon as possible as well. I'm trying to rush as much tech as possible. So I'll get a second farm, probably over here, and then I'll get a research post over here so that I can build the academy, because to build the tier 3 research, or to build it, so buildings come in typically tiers, right? So you have like tier 1, just is easy to build. So let's say I build that shrine, that's tier 1. Then you have the mana obelisk, that's tier 2. Has no requirements, you just build it. The tier 3 building requires you to have the building that produces the same kind of resource. So in this case, it's conduits. I need to have mana producing buildings. And then the final tier is the Mages Guild, which is the tier that provides mana based on the number of conduits in your city. So yeah, it's just a good rule of thumb, and that applies to farming, buildings, etc. Now, heroes can advance their skills in a variety of ways. The first way is to get new equipment. We haven't found any new equipment. I mean, we did get the Ring of the Vicious Killer, which is fine. The other way is that they can actually level up, both in terms of their signature abilities and their basic abilities, and they're also capable of absorbing your racial traits. So I could go for another battle magic skill, but instead, do I want him to be... Actually, Sundering Curse could be really good to get on my hero. You know what, I'm going to take him more in a magical direction. I really like support skills, but I think maybe a magical direction would be good. I'm going to take the Magecraft ability, which will allow his magical attacks, which he's carrying a poison orb, to ignore 1 level of status resistance and give them 10% accuracy. So he'll be better at attacking. That's what I'll do. I'll build him more as an actual battle mage. So I'm going to do a little bit of a delta split with my units. I don't always recommend doing this, but it's a great thing to do if you're a little bit uncertain in the direction you should go. Also, I found a watchtower, which has actually given me a lot of really good information. So I found the city of Stapleton over here. And this is maybe telling me that over here might not actually be the best place for a new city. Because I don't know if there's enough room. But I could build a very interesting coastal city if I were to plonk a city right here, which I might actually do. So I'm going to pull my hero back, because what I want to do is to build an outpost, and only heroes can build outposts. So I'm going to pull my hero back into this tile, and I'm going to start the construction of an outpost. Outposts allow you to claim provinces. So there's my outpost. It's coming up now. It'll take 2 turns to build. Outposts are the precursors to cities. Now, in terms of exploration direction, I think I'm going to head south and see if I can find anything interesting to the south. All right, we found the Baneful Curse. We finished researching it. Now, we could go for Soul Binders, the Bone Golem, or Soul Overflow. I think I'm going to go for Soul Binders. I think that's a more interesting ability. Here's a question though. Do I want to lock in the Bone Golem? The Bone Golem is a pretty strong tier 2 unit. I don't quite have the mana income to sustain it though. So I'm just going to go ahead and research Soul Binders for now, and we'll leave it at that. We got a new Empire development skill available. So for the cost of 75 Imperium, we can get 10 knowledge per turn when we send a Whispering Stone to a free city. Since I am going for a Tech Rush build, I am going to go ahead and take the All-Seeing Eye. That will give me a nice boost to my research per turn. Now, having spotted a second Ancient Wonder to the south, that has kind of changed my opinion of building a city on this tile right here. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and abort this outpost and instead place my city on the tile I had initially planned, because there's a pasture here that I've already cleared that will allow the city to grow quickly. There's a iron mine nearby that'll allow it to build things. I have access to an Oracle Woods and a Pilgrim Passage. So as long as I can clear those out, you do have to fight to clear them before you can actually claim them. I can do some pretty good work here. Let's go ahead and rejoin all my armies together. And we're going to go ahead and try to clear out this. Now this is going to be the hardest thing that we fought so far. It's got 4 units in it. So we'll see how she goes. Let's go ahead and begin the combat. It's a low risk battle. We lost 2 units, which means I'm going to have to fight that battle manually to prevent any losses. I would say typically if your units lose too much health or you lose a unit, it's probably a good idea to fight that battle manually. Now, we have a very aggressive faction, so we definitely want to be on the offensive. So I'm going to be playing on the left side of the battle here. Bring my hero to this tile, and I'll bring you to there, you to there. Yeah, so generally, we're a pretty aggressive faction, so we want to be moving out towards our enemies. Generally, we don't sit back and wait for them to come to us. Now, we're going to go ahead and cast a Baneful Curse here on this group of units, which will massively sunder their defenses and weaken them. I'm going to move my hero 1 tile to the left. No, what if I moved him 2 tiles to the left? Yeah. But first, I'm going to move these shock units over here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to bait the enemies in to attacking me, even though that might not be a great idea for them. I'm going to cast a Sundering Curse. This Spearman right here is the scariest unit on the battlefield. It's a tier 2 unit with a ton of defense. It's got a big DPS. So what I want to do is I want to sunder him and weaken him even further. So cast a Sundering Curse. He takes a whole bunch of weakens. And now his defense is sundered by -3, which means he's taking about, 30% more damage. I'm going to cast Magical Bolts on him. So you can see, if he were to rush forward and attack my wizard, he would do 8 damage. As he takes damage, units in his formation will die. You can see there's a dead unit on the floor. So I'm going to attack him, right? And watch carefully. Watch the actual units fall down and die, right? So he was doing 8 damage, and there was 6 people in formation. Now he's only going to do 6 damage because I killed a couple of the units in the formation, right? So you're starting to see that actually doing damage to enemies is a way to increase your own survivability. Let's move forward with this archer, and I'm going to attack him twice. This will further weaken him, meaning if he were to come forward, he'll only do 3 damage. So this guy's effectively dead as far as I'm concerned. We have our shock units in a position to counterattack extremely efficiently, which is exactly where we want them to be. So I'm going to let them come forward and get very weak attacks on my actual units. Okay, so he just did a massive heal, which makes this battle a little bit harder, but that's fine because we're still in a great position to counterattack. Now, let's go ahead and do an Ice Shackle, I reckon. No, I think I'm going to do another Baneful Curse. This does cost me just 10 mana. I'll make these guys weak. I'm going to do Magical Bolts on this guy because I want to weaken him. 1, 2, 3. So now he's super weakened, and now I can rush forward with my shock unit here to cancel his retaliation, which will allow my archer to break contact with him, and it'll also give him a regeneration tag. So now my archer can leave without taking a retaliation attack. You can see enemy units have a zone of control. You see these 3 swords that are projecting out in front? They will do 27 damage next turn. But if I try to leave, I'll also take a retaliation attack. You'd see this guy has a sword underneath his profile. However, if I use a charge attack on him, I will cancel his retaliation. Right, watch. Boom, the sword disappears. I gain regeneration. And now I can step out because his retaliation attack is gone. However, I could just stab him in the face. Would that be more damage than stepping back? Let me have a think about that. If I step back, I can magically bolt this guy. I could do 20 damage. If I magically bolt this guy, 1 and 2... that means this warrior should be able to get the kill, which will leave a corpse that I can eat on the floor. Now, spearmen do have first strike, but when they're really weak like this, the first strike doesn't matter. There's another stack of regeneration. I'm going to pull you back a tile, and you have 2 attacks. Now, the biggest threat on the field is currently the Zealot. This guy won't do too much even with 3 attacks. This guy will do a lot of damage with 3 attacks. So what I want to do, he's going to do 14 damage, so I'm going to go ahead and weaken him. And I'm getting double value here on the weakened because not only is he getting weakened, I'm actually reducing the number of attacks he has. So he's going to do 10 damage and he's going to do 8. So we've successfully weakened and navigated this battle. Our units are regenerating. All the good things are happening. My unit counterattacks and does severe damage. My unit should also counterattack here and basically kill him. That's excellent. Why don't you go ahead and attack this guy from behind? It should be a very quick kill, which will free this guy up to go and attack him. Let's go ahead and drop a weakening curse on him. This will sunder his armor, making him more vulnerable to damage. So this guy, when he charges, he should do... by the way, shock units, they gain 20% more damage the further they travel. So this 12 damage is really deceptive because he's actually going to do 22. And boom. He also gains a stack of regeneration. I'm going to go ahead and move my archer forward to blast this kid like so. And can I get my hero in position as well to do a blast? And boom, there we go. We got him killed. Perfect. So you can often navigate your way through battles more efficiently than the AI, but don't be afraid to auto-resolve a lot of like really easy battles. So there we go, 72 production, and we got the Staff of Radiance, which is a tier 2 primary attack weapon that gives adjacent allies +2 resistance when we use defense mode, and it also has the Magic Blast that can inflict blind. Blind is a modifier that lowers the enemy's accuracy and prevents them from retaliating. Could be an interesting thing to use. I don't think we'll take it, but we will take the reward, which will get us closer to finishing the Arcane Institute. Feeling pretty good about our current location. I don't think I'm ready to clear this stack. I think I would need maybe a few more units, which is why I'm going to come into my city here and begin the production of Dark Warriors and Pursuers. I'm not going to be building skeletons yet because skeletons take mana upkeep, and I'm going for a research early build, so I'm not going to get a lot of mana in the early game. Skeletons are pretty good because they can be combined together into bone golems, but I would much rather use my basic units. Let's go ahead and set this scout to auto-explore as well. We just finished the storehouse. We also finished the outrider. My ruler has leveled up again. Let's scroll down. Now that my ruler has 2 battle magic skills, they have unlocked the tier 2 battle magic skills. So if I come up here and look at the warfare skills, you can see things like sentinels. This adept, it requires you to have 2 warfare skills to unlock. There are adept and expert skills, or is it adept, expert, and master? Yeah. Master is the final tier of skill. So we have a whole bunch of things that we could take on our hero. I think it would be good to take Sundering Curse. This is like my faction specific ability, and it seems pretty damn good, right? Sunders enemy, it does decent damage, 24. It sunders their defense, it sunders their resistance, it weakens them. It just seems like it's a really good ability, so I'm going to go ahead and take it. So Baron Lord Lordseeker of Darkspire has invited me to a game of high stakes, so I can gamble and gain 200 gold, which will hurt their allegiance. I can let him win, gaining allegiance, which will allow them to become more loyal, or I can humiliate him to lose allegiance and gain gold and fame. Well, I'm going to do the evil thing because that's who I am. I want that gold and I want that Imperium. He can just stay mad, as far as I'm concerned. Now, I think we might be able to clear an Oracle Woods, but I would maybe like to wait on that one for a... I'd like these guys to have at least tier 3 abilities to gain extra damage before I do that. So I'm kind of looking for somewhere I can go to clear stuff. It looks like there's a brigand camp over here to the left, and I've already planted down a potential city. I would love to clear this right now if I could, but that's 3 tier 2s and a tier 3 unit, which is probably just a little bit much for me right now. I think what I'll do is I'll loop down to the south. Maybe, let me have a look. Is there anything down? There's potentially stuff down here. Let me zoom in. Now, it doesn't look like there's much down here to the south, so I'm just going to head west and see if I can maybe clear this brigand camp and get some kind of bonus. So, Cardboard Box can annex another province, and I would like to annex another farm. Let's have a look. Are there any resource nodes in range? Not really. But here's the thing, my free city is bumping up against this, so I'm going to go ahead and just take that research post right now. That'll give me 10 mana per turn and 5 research. I am claiming a province adjacent to or near another person, so this will upset them. You can see here, they are upset that I ignored their sector claim, which has lowered their relations with me, and the higher their relations, the faster that I can vassalize them. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on in there. We could build an underground city as well. This is something we should consider. Now, we have finished building the outpost over here, and we have a few choices that we can go for here. We could build palisade walls, we could build a work camp, we could found a city. I really like the idea of building palisade walls before you annex the city, and sometimes building the work camp is worth it too. So, yeah. I think now is the time to get the walls on your outposts, because it could make your life just so much easier if you have walls in your cities from the moment that they're born. Because if a city doesn't have walls, people can walk in and just mash them. And when you build palisade walls in your outposts and then build a city out of them, the city inherits the walls. Okay, we finished researching the Soulbinder's enchantment, which is a unit enchantment. This is a type of spell that applies a buff to a class of unit. In this case, it's going to apply a buff to our battle mages. It does have an upkeep per unit, which is 2 mana per turn. This will give my battle mage units a 90% chance to inflict soulbound, which allows us to gain more souls from our enemies when we kill them, which is a useful thing here, right? Souls. And it gives us plus 10 damage against units with soulbound. So this is essentially, effectively, like a 10% damage boost for battle mages and a real buff to our soul economy, the soul economy. Arcane research, I'm going to take Brand of Wrath, because this will allow all of my undead units, which technically aren't dark units, to have the Cold the Weak ability, which is a pretty good ability because it allows them to deal 20% more damage against units that have the weakened debuff, and it also gives them regeneration when they attack a weakened unit. So we'll take Brand of Wrath. I have just unlocked the Shadow Binding skill, which makes my magical origin units have a 20% reduction in upkeep, which will apply to all the undead units that we plan to summon. However, I don't plan to summon undead right now, so I'm not going to take it. There's no point in spending Imperium for a very small benefit that you're not actually taking advantage of. You're better off having that resource in reserve, in my opinion. Now, this over here is an infestation. There are 3 tiers of infestation. There's bronze infestations, there's silver infestations, and gold infestations. The higher the tier of infestation, and it goes bronze, silver, gold, the stronger the infestation is, the harder it is to break, the more rewards you get for breaking it. Infestations will send armies towards your provinces on a cooldown. They typically sleep for a while, and then they become active. They'll patrol their land, and then they'll send an invasion. They'll also spread their territory. I'm going to go ahead and try to clear this right now. This is a bronze infestation, so there's very little in it, so it should be a very easy auto-resolve. That's a little bit more damage than I would like, so I'm going to go ahead and retry that myself, just to minimize the damage that my units take. That's a much better outcome, with a lot less damage taken. A little bit of micromanagement, and you can prevent some damage on your army. Now, by clearing that, we did get 60 production, as well as the Wand of Mass Healing, which is a great reward. I'm going to go ahead and take that and equip it into my hero's bag slot. This is a tier 3 miscellaneous item that heals target-friendly units in a 1 hex radius for 30 temporary hit points. Temporary hit points are healing that does not persist after the battle. Otherwise, you could just delay a battle fight, and this was optimal to do in the game before they implemented temporary hit points. You would just delay a battle as long as possible and put as much healing into your units. You would try to leave one enemy alive while you healed up your units. It was kind of exploity and a little bit BS, so I'm glad they changed it out. We would like to build an underground laboratory. I'm going to go ahead and spend Imperium to get a farm, but I really, really, really want another quarry. So I'm going to start the production of an underground laboratory, and then I'm going to come which is now boosted by having built 2 farms. That'll give me 5 knowledge as well as 10 gold. And I'm going to come over to this farm and I'm going to change this to a quarry in 3 turns. You can swap your tile improvements around based on your needs, so don't be afraid to do that, because I cannot see another place that I can get a quarry, and I need that second quarry so that I can boost the academy and get it in a reasonable amount of time rather than in 12 turns. Remember, this is a tech rush build, so we're focusing hard on technology, which is kind of necessary for Shadow in my opinion. We've just finished casting the Soulbinder spell, which took several turns of spending all of our world map casting points, because the spells have a cost both in mana and in casting points, so it might take you multiple turns to cast them. And now I can enchant them with this ability. So if I continue and I go check out my warlocks down here, they have the Soulbinder's ability, and they do slightly more damage when they attack. You can see here, 90% chance of inflicting soulbound. Very cool. This will increase my soul economy quite a bit. We got a Pyreborn hunt. I am honored to join you in this hunt, which is a random quest. It's all the way over here. We're going to kill some dire penguins. Well, luckily enough, we were making our way in that direction anyway. I'm going to go ahead and pick up this mana stash for 41 mana. Keep exploring. There's a serpent cavern over here that we might be able to clear. We probably need a little bit more going on for us. I'm going to go ahead and head this way. We can get to that penguin pretty soon. And we're going to continue to produce Dark Warriors and Pursuers. This outpost over here finished Palisade Walls. You can usually get away with Palisade Walls. I like to build the full stone walls. That's just me. We have another Empire development skill, so we can get the Call of Chaos, which gives us a free unit when we defeat an infestation. I don't see many infestations, so I don't see much of a point in taking that. And we succeeded in our negotiations with this free city. We now have the Pact of Cooperation, which opens their borders, enables trading, and allows us to grab magical materials. I'm going to go ahead and buy the Silver Tongue Fruit, because this will give me +1 allegiance from my Whispering Stones, which will, inevitably lead to me annexing these guys faster. So I'll trade that, and now I'll get them up to a Pact of Loyalty at 4 turns instead of whatever, and then I'll spend some Imperium to get them there faster, because I really want to vassalize these guys. I'm going to go ahead and research the Soulbind Army skill, which makes all enemy units take the Soulbound trait. It can be cast on an enemy on the world map. Now, I do have Brand of Wrath, but none of my units are actually of these classes, so there's no point in casting it until they actually exist. Right, let's clear this quest. We will auto-combat it and see if we lose anything. This guy took a little bit of damage, but that's not important. We can play around that. We got 8 souls and 18 food and 18 mana. I'll take it. By completing this, we gain a relations boost with Darkspire, which will increase the rate that we annex them. I can get all the food. I can get a whole bunch of gold. I can get a Night Guard, which is a tier 2 polearm unit. Or I can get a bunch of Imperium. I'm going to go ahead and take the gold, because my gold income is going to dip in this build as I continue to spend and spend and spend into a deficit. So, Darkspire has now given me the Pact of Loyalty. It allows them to share its vision. They allow me to build on their provinces. They contribute 2 to the Rally Allegiance, which is a mechanic we'll talk about later. And they will reinforce in combat against marauders and rulers that they're at war with. I'm going to go ahead and boost the allegiance again for +9 allegiance so that we can get to the Pact of Vassalage in 2 turns rather than 3. This isn't super optimal, nor is it super worth it, but I'm just doing it so that you can see me interact with those mechanics. There we go, we have the Soulbind Army spell. Let's go ahead and select a new research, and we have done enough research cycles to get to a new research era. So a really good combo with Dark is actually the Tome of Cryomancy. We already have ways to inflict slowed, and our abilities scale pretty well against frozen and slowed. You can see here frost arrows. This would give us a 20% damage boost against frozen or slowed units. We have frost blades. This would also give us a 20% damage boost against frozen or slowed units. And then the Tome of Cryomancy itself comes with a bunch of tools to inflict slow. So for example, Ice Coffin inflicts frozen or slow. White Witches have the Freezing Blast ability, which has a chance to inflict frozen. You have the Lesser Snow Spirit, which has the Freezing Burst ability. I believe they can also level up if they tier up to the Snow Spirit, which has a better version of the Freezing Burst and the Freezing Phase. Now, another really good option for the undead is actually the Tome of Pyromancy to get the Ritual Pyre, which will allow you to get a bunch of mana income. And then you have the Pyromancer instead, which is all about inflicting fire. Now, we don't necessarily have a way to inflict many ways to inflict burning as it currently stands, but our range units already inflict weakening, and then they'll have a 30% chance to inflict burning. And then if we take fiery arrows and searing blades, we'll do 20% damage against targets that are burning. So it kind of reinforces the synergy that we have. We could also potentially get a Pyromancer and the Summon Lesser Magma Spirit, and then maybe go with an Ignite, which is more damage heavy. Chaos Affinity is also a very powerful affinity. So really, in my mind, there are like a whole bunch of like completely valid choices here. I feel like the Undead path works really well with Cryomancy. It also works really well with the Tome of Zeal, because you get the Circle of Zealotry, which gives you an extra 10 draft per positive or negative level of alignment. We could theoretically go for the Tome of Zeal. This would give us things like Fanatical Workforce, which allow us to boost the production of our cities. We'll get Inspiring Chant, which gives morale to our units. The only problem with morale is that we plan to transform into the undead, and so we won't be benefiting much from morale later on. However, there are some really interesting interactions with morale that we can do if we do go for some Order Tome stuff. While we are going for a shadow build, I think it's good to add a splash of variety, and I think the Tome of Pyromancy with its really good mana income from the Ritual Pyre is a fantastic pick. It also gives us a really reliable way to get lumber mills. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Tome of Pyromancy here, but you know, the Tome of Cryomancy and the Tome of Frost are totally valid choices. Technically, the Tome of Cryomancy is better for our build because it would actually give us more knowledge, which is now making me reconsider my choice. You know what? Let's go for the Tome of Cryomancy. Yeah, I think if we're doing a Tech Rush build, we should go all in on the Tech Rush build. Now, Ice Coffin is one of the best early game spells because it has a chance to literally just stun an enemy. So I'm going to go ahead and lock that in. Do I want to... Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and... Yeah, I'm going to lock Frost Blades and I'm going to research Ice Coffin. So I've managed to build the palisade here in the outpost. I could choose to build a work camp, but instead I'm just going to go ahead and found the city. This is essentially like paying 100 gold to have +1 population when the city is founded, but I could probably grow a pop in 3 turns. If I just settle the city because I have a pasture here, right? So I'm just going to settle the city now that it's here. We don't need to build a watchtower, don't need to do any of that stuff, and we can start to build up our second city. We have got a group of Marauder Guards guarding a gold stash. Well, I do really need gold in the early game. I would like to clear the Serpent Cavern, but I think I would like to get a little bit of experience from fighting here. So let's bring our stacks in. We'll go ahead and make the attack. Now, these guys are so weak that they are running. They are fleeing. However, I am evil, and so I will chase them down because I want to get that evil alignment. I'm going to go ahead and auto-resolve the battle, get my 6 souls and my 12 food and 12 mana, and a whole pile of cash for clearing them out. Let's go ahead and step on this watchtower to give us a little bit more information. We could go clear some of these coastal resource nodes for experience and resources. So I'm going to go ahead and take the basic seafaring skill that'll allow me to embark. And then I'm also tempted to take expanded governance to allow me to settle a 4th city. There is room over here for another city, especially if we can get that lost Queen's Crypt. That could be a very interesting thing. And I think I would like to build a nice coastal city here. So yeah, I'm going to take Expanded Governance, which will allow me to settle my 4th city. Expanded Governance is a repeatable right. Generally, you want to click on this at least once, maybe twice by the mid-game. But it's very expensive in Imperium. I wouldn't advocate clicking on this more than like 3 times in an average game, because that'll be just so much Imperium and you want to unlock these other things. But clicking on it once in the early game is a totally reasonable thing to do if you plan to settle an extra city. Now, production in Cardboard Box. We're going to go ahead and get started on the Academy. We have the two quarries and the forester that will allow me to boost it. And now the science per turn in this city is starting to become very, very powerful. I am tempted to get the workshop first, But this is a rush build. We're rushing tech. Now, I would like to get the Scholars Guild, but that would be very, very expensive and very difficult to do. So we're going to stay on the Academy. We don't need to go any more than the Academy as it currently stands. So we've acquired a number of magical materials. We've acquired Archon Blood, which gives us 20 combat casting points, which allows us to cast more spells in combat. We've gotten Astral Dew, which gives us 20 world map casting points. We have Silver Tongue Fruit, which is giving our Whispering Stones +1 allegiance. I think we just vassalized Darkspire. Yeah, we did. So they have the regular Pact of Vassalage. So they give me 30% of all of their money. They share all of their magic materials. They contribute 2 to the Rally of Lieges, which is a special mechanic that allows you to recruit units from your vassals. And they also allow me to trade with them. So I can pay 5 mana for, 20 gold for 10 research. That's a bad trade deal. But I really want to take it because it really fits into my build. My ruler is level 4, so they can level up once again. I will not be taking frost weapons. Let's see. So I could get Lightning Invoker, Fire Invoker. I could also take Magecraft. Distant Evocation would increase the range of my magical attacks. That's actually quite good. And it would unlock things like Arcane Strength and Frost Evoker. Yeah, let's take Distant Evocation. That'll allow me to cast Magical Bolts and my Sundering Curse 1 tile further. My alignment went down to Very Evil, which means we're now triggering even more Imperium from Scions of Evil, and our capital city should be gaining even more draft from our level of alignment. We just need to go, if I hover over this, down to Pure Evil. So we need to get another 60 evil points. We need to do 60 evil points worth of evil things to become Pure Evil, which is kind of a strange thing to say, but you know, it is what it is. Now, Stapleton is an insolent free city. They actually start off at war with us, which is a bit of a problem. Now, we have a quest for cultivation. They want me to build 3 farms. I'm going to go ahead and accept that quest. We'll get a race relation bonus and a mystery bonus, which is quite nice. Let's have a look. I am going to go ahead and try to clear this serpent cavern. Yes. I'm going to build a city on this tile. I'll build an outpost first. And then I'm going to go ahead and try to clear this serpent cavern. This is going to be a tough fight. It is only a bronze Ancient Wonders. Ancient Wonders are a special type of province that acts like a province improvement. So this Serpent Cavern counts as a quarry, but it also gives you Imperium. It's like 4 quarries in 1. It counts as a quarry for the purpose of bonuses and boosting buildings. It gives us access to a special citywide bonus, which gives us +2 mana per quarry in the city domain. And it also adds a couple of units to the Rally of Lieges. The Plague Serpent and the Stormscale Serpent. Now, when you explore these Ancient Wonders, you'll get a series of events. In this case, it's a Pit of Vipers. I could say I'm not afraid to clear it, and I could fight it, but I will have the Gorgon's Curse, which means every 2 turns, a target will be stunned. Or I can just feed them one of my population, which upsets my people, makes me more evil, and just clears it for free. I'm going to clear it for free. That's 1 pop. That's practically cost me nothing. So I instantly pick up 214 mana, and then I get to choose how I'm going to approach this. I can pick up 155 knowledge. I can get a whole bunch of Imperium, or I can get a second Warlock. Man, getting that second Warlock is actually really tempting. Another Sundering Curse with Weakening Bolts. That's really tempting. But this is a tech rush build, so I'm going to go for the knowledge. Boom. That should instantly finish whatever it was we were researching, which was Ice Coffin. So now I can select a new research. Let's have a look. Soul Overflow isn't bad. I'm going to lock in Frost Arrow. Well, yeah, I'm going to lock in Frost Arrows, but then research Frost Blades. We actually instantaneously researched Frost Blades. Blizzard, I think, is a great spell, so I may lock that in too. It's a great offensive army spell. Let's lock that in, and then we'll go for Frost Arrows. I'm going to immediately start casting Frost Blades, which will give +4 frost damage to all of my melee units. Polearm, Shock, Shield, Fighter, Skirmisher. It'll reduce their physical damage by 2, so this is a total +2 damage, but it's elemental damage. So it's actually effectively quite a bit more damage because units tend to have less resistance to magic damage than physical damage. So this will be overall a damage buff, and I'll be able to do more damage against frozen units. So just overall, this is a good step forward for me. So we'll start casting that. We used up our 55 world map casting points, and we'll use 25 of those world map casting points next turn, and we used 80 mana. This is also going to cost 2 mana per unit to maintain. Let's have a look here. I might try to clear this Lost Queen's Crypt. Sometimes you can clear these with just an event click, and if I could do that, that would actually be super overpowered, because that would be worth 5 research posts worth of mana, and I would also get 2 mana, 2 knowledge, and a soul for every hero that I kill and steal the corpse of. So this could be potentially a really powerful early game for me if I can get those, if I can get that online. So I may actually take my hero over to the left here. It feels like a good move. So I'm starting to build a second army stack, and it's going to be made up of 2 Dark Warriors, 2 Pursuers, and then ideally 2 Battle Mage units, but I don't have my tier 2 building yet, so I'm just going to let that hang for a little while. Okay, so the city of Duskwatch has finished being produced. I think the very first thing that I'm going to do is to annex this iron deposit here, ideally with a quarry. So let's attract population. We're going to go ahead and build a quarry. That will give the city a ton of production. And I'm going to go ahead and start building shrines because I am starting to consume mana. I prefer to build boosted buildings. That's like my ideal circumstance. And by the time the shrine finishes, we should also finish another population. I'll be able to place a farm or something like that, which will allow me to build other buildings boosted. So generally, you want to be really efficient with how you build up your cities. And I find that that's just a really good way to build up cities efficiently. Now, I do need to be careful because Stapleton may start sending units against me. So I want to finish up what I'm doing over here to the left and then turn around and maybe attack Stapleton. So I'm kind of tempted to keep recruiting Dark Warriors and Pursuers and just build 3 stacks of tier 1 units, especially because I'm very close to unlocking Impressment. In 4 turns, I'll be able to reduce the upkeep cost of my tier 1 units by 30%, which is a massive reduction. We have just finished casting Frostblades. Let's go ahead and cast the enchantment. And now when I go check out the stats of my Dark Warriors, right, even in the menu here, you can see they do 16 base damage plus 4 frost damage, which is quite nice. A very cool ability. Now, we have a second city, so we can recruit a hero. Let's have a look. We could get a Shadow Adept. Oh, that would give us a lot of Shadow affinity. He's slick, or he could be a Pragmatic Leader, which gives units Cold-Blooded. He's a Resistant Duelist. I think Shadow Adept would give me a lot more research, so I think I might take Shadow Adept here. So for 250 gold, I can get Moloch Lord Seeker. Let's go ahead and recruit him. Now, he's a level 3 hero. He has only 1 spell so far, and I think I'm going to build him towards being a battle mage as well. Although it's good to have a diversity. Maybe I'll build him as a support hero. It's good to have support heroes. Yeah, let's take Soul Collector, and we'll take the Restore ability. Soul Collector just means his attacks inflict soulbound, and Restore allows him to heal allied units. 2 very good abilities. I'm also going to appoint Moloch Lord Seeker as the governor of this city over here. That'll give the city 2 production and draft as well as 12 science per turn, bringing us up to a very healthy 120 science per turn. We have unlocked Death Magic, which would give us extra casting points when units die, and we've also unlocked the Crypt Blade hero item, which is a very cool weapon that can cause zombies to appear. The free city has gone up to Bonded Vassalage, which will give us even more resources, which is very nice. As we continue to develop our relationship, once we get up to, I believe it's Flourishing Vassalage, we can actually integrate them into our empire at the cost of Imperium. Right, we built an outpost over here. Let's go ahead and build up our walls. We definitely want to build the walls here. It just building, because otherwise it takes forever to build the walls. You have to build the city up to tier 1 and then to tier 2, and then you have to actually build the walls. It's just annoying. Let's go ahead and explore in here. We have a couple of choices here. So I could choose to just attack, right? And I can fight the Lost Queen's Crypt Guards. It's a relatively difficult fight. Or I could use my Shadow Affinity to weaken the defenders, or I could just feed them another population and gain more evil alignment and clear this for free. While I do want to show you some of these battles, if I have an option to just feed a population, gain evil alignment, and clear one of these things for free, you bet your ass I'm taking that option. Now, we met Mishara the Radiant. She is a good aligned hero of the human paladins. Fast recuperation, adaptable, they're high, their devotees are good, they're imperialists. She's an authoritarian diplomat. She never breaks treaties. She likes exploration, expansion. She likes empires with a single race. She likes them with a strong military. She doesn't like people who have good relations with free cities, and she dislikes empires that have many alliances. Okay, so she's kind of a little bit interesting here. She really does not like us because we are very opposed. I'm order, or their order. I'm chaos, so on and so forth. Now, the Eternal Bedchambers have been cleared, so we gain 300 money. We can take the Wand of the Rising Undead, which will allow us to raise friendly undead from being dead. It's quite handy. We can add Dara the Astute, Dara the Astute to our recruitment pool. We can gain a whole bunch of knowledge, which kind of is the direction we might take, or we could do this. I like the idea of the Wand of the Rising Undead. Being able to revive my undead units seems quite handy. But let's take the knowledge. Knowledge is the build that we are going for. So there's Frost Arrows, excellent. Ooh, do I want Blizzard or do I want White Witches? Freezing Blast, honestly, I gave White Witches a lot of shit because they don't have AoE, but honestly, early game, Freezing Blast is really good. The 90% chance to inflict frozen or slowed is really damn good, especially when you combine it with Blizzard. So I'm going to go ahead and lock in Blizzard so that I have that as an option, but I will take the White Witch. I'm doing a little bit of manual exploring with my scout over here because it was running around the city, and scouts running around cities are likely to get themselves killed, particularly when you're at war with them. So be careful with your scouts. I'm going to go ahead and start casting Frost Arrows. And you can see now we're actually spending mana on our unit enchantment upkeep. So I'm casting Frost Arrows to make my archers better. My melee units have been buffed. Now I'd like my archers to be buffed. So just keep this in mind that this guy does 10 damage. He's a low tier recruit compared to this guy that does 11 damage. Just keep that in mind. Stapleton has sent a war party. So we are going to want to make our way back to the east. And we're going to be glad that we have the fortification in here. And by making our way back to the east, we can clear out this node. We can clear out the Pilgrim's Passage. We can clear out the Oracle Woods. We could also clear out this bandit camp. Maybe even go attack Stapleton. I think that might be the play. My gold income is really bad right now, but I have a ton of gold reserve, which is honestly almost as good. Let's use you. Hoping for a good auto combat here. Okay, we lost 2 units. That's completely unacceptable. We're going to go ahead and retry that. We're going up against Astral Fiends, and we're on a magical material site. Magical material sites tend to have a negative effect. In this case, every 2 turns, all of my units will be displaced by 2 hexes. We're up against the Astral Siphoner here. This is a strong melee unit that does up to 30 damage in a single attack, 17 of it physical, 13 of it magical, and it also drains enchantments from the units. It has Astral Pull, Astral Membrane, which means it's really good against melee attackers because anyone who attacks it in melee has a 30% chance of becoming stunned, and when it dies, it heals everyone nearby. Very strong, very scary unit that's really resistant to magic. Otherwise weak to physical. Then we have the Astral Flow Serpents, which are really damn good at getting into your backline with the Astral Pursuit ability, dealing up to 24 damage to a unit, just super good, and then putting them into its zone of control so it can melee strike them. Very, very strong Flow Serpents. Then we have the Astral Wisp, which is a battle mage that does just a whole bunch of magical damage. It also has Astral Membrane, so attacking it will stun you. The real scary thing about Flow Serpents is they have Astral Refuge, which means you hit them and then they disappear, and you can only hit them once per turn. So yeah. Astral Pursuit has no cooldown, so they're really good at getting to your backline. So honestly, the scariest thing in this map right now are these 3 Astral Serpents. If they all decide to teleport onto a single unit, they will kill it. The Astral Siphoner is a little bit easier to deal with, although in fairness, it is quite scary. I have the Wand of Mass Healing, so I would like to think about my positioning. This guy is a little bit hurt, so I'm going to push this army to the right, and I'm going to have this guy heal this guy to give him a little bit of health and stuff like that. I'll bring a second shock unit to the right. So I'm going to have 1 stack of army come to the right, hopefully peeling off a couple of these wisps. And then this stack, the more experienced stack, will go to the left. And my plan is to break it up into 2 groups and see how the enemy does. They typically don't do amazingly well if you split your armies, because they kind of struggle prioritizing targets, whereas you can prioritize targets really, really well. So let's see what they decide to do. So they decided to concentrate forces here on the left. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull back as far back as I can. Now, this might seem like madness, but there's a couple of reasons for this. I want to draw them into a more open area where I can use my melee advantage to my advantage, and I'm also about to get displaced. So I want my units as far away as possible so they don't get put into a vulnerable position. Let's go ahead and pull everyone back. I want to make sure they all face the correct direction as well. And since they don't really have any AoE, I'm just going to stack all my units together. Also, I have infinite healing thanks to the Restore ability. So technically, it plays to my advantage the longer this battle goes on. This is also a really great opportunity for me to drop a Baleful Curse on them, which will lower their defense and their damage. Right, let's see what they do. Yeah, we got discombobulated, which is not great, but it isn't terrible either. Now, I really need to kill this serpent. He's flanked, he has Astral Refuge. Ideal scenario, this guy gets up, it does a massive strike, boom. Where's my Baleful Curse going to go? I could hit these 2 or these 2. I'm going to hit all these, make them weak. Let's move you forward and just hit this guy once. This will weaken him and put him into his refuge so he can't be hurt. And then we'll just have you positioned, ready to counterattack whenever he inevitably goes on you. The Astral Siphoner, I'd like to get as many units up in his face as possible. So that's what we're going to do. And then I would really like to get another weakened stack on him, if we can make that work. Come on, 1 more weakened stack. Nope, we missed. Okay, we need to focus fire onto that guy because he needs to die early into this battle. Let's see if we can't get a little bit of extra damage in. Perfect. Okay, 14 damage on a very low chance to hit. I'm going to put a shock unit in control of this guy, so if he tries anything, he should get counterattacked. And we are now going to cancel this guy's defense. We resisted the Astral Membrane. We'll go ahead and blast him again. We resisted the Astral Membrane. Excellent. So this guy now has lost 1 of his 2 units, meaning he does half as much damage. And depending on who he attacks, he may actually die. So I'd say that's a pretty successful start. Now, these little wispy dudes, they do so much damage. It's really annoying. Yeah. So I was expecting to lose at least 1 unit here, just because of the sheer amount of damage these guys can pump out in a single turn. But it bodes well for me, because I'm going to get you to run in, insta-kill this guy. That's an insta-gib right there. We're going to drop another Baleful Curse. I'll move my hero 1 tile to the left. You will get a charge off on this guy and insta-gib him. Perfect. I'll step you forward. We'll do the Sundering Curse on him. Boom. Make him weak. Blast him. Boom, boom. Then use this guy to control this Wisp with who does have Astral Membrane. We resist it, perfect. And then we can use the rest of our units to try to control this other Wisp. So we may only lose a single unit, which is honestly a major upgrade in outcome. Move my Archer up, blast him once, hopefully inflicting weakened. Yep, even a Graze, which is an attack that only barely hits, can still inflict weakened. So now these guys are completely zero threat, and I have no fear left in me. I'm super happy with the outcome of this battle. Very, very nice. Very, very easy battle. We still lost a unit, but that was just because the enemies just had so much concentrated firepower. They all attacked the same unit, which the AI will do. It was a pretty highly leveled Dark Warrior, which is slightly upsetting because, obviously you don't want to lose units if you can avoid it. But we can just add another Dark Warrior to our production queue. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about that. Now we're going to head east and see if we can't deal with all these natural wonders and ideally also Stapleton itself. Lovely. We just finished researching the White Witch. I don't think we can really afford to build any more of them. And now here is how you tier up your technology. We have researched 2 Tier 1 books, which has now unlocked the ability to research Tier 2 books. In order to research Tier 2 books, you need to have 2 Tier 1 books researched. In order to research Tier 3 books, you have to have 2 Tier 1 books researched. In order to unlock Tier 4 books, you have to research 2 Tier 3 books, and you also have to have a minimum amount of affinity. Similarly, in order to unlock Tier 5 books, you have to research 2 Tier 4 books and have a minimum amount of affinity. Now, when it comes to choices, Doom Herald is surprisingly good at completely obliterating enemy morale. It also gives us access to the Doom Depth Trench, which would give us an extra 9 mana and 9 knowledge for each alignment level. Sorry, when we get to maximum negative alignment. It's also worth just 10 mana and 10 knowledge, so it's a really damn good province improvement. We could go for the Tome of Necromancy. This will give us access to the Soul Well, which will allow us to passively generate souls in our cities, as well as giving us extra mana. And it also counts as a research post, so it'll scale off research post stuff. We get the Restore Undead ability, which allows us to restore health to undead people. We get the Rotting Explosion ability, which allows us to explode zombies. We get Raise Zombies, which allows us to turn corpses into zombies. We get Necrotic Magic, which allows our magical units to inflict decaying, and we also get access to the Necromancer, which has the corpse eating, the Raise Undead and Strengthen Undead abilities. I would say, since we're going for a very evil build, the Tome of the Doom Herald is really nice here, but there are some other really valid choices. The Tome of Artificing is actually an incredibly good tome because the Iron Golem is really good at sieging down cities, and siege magic actually allows your battle mages and support units to become siege units and speed up how quickly you burn cities, which is actually a really useful ability. The Tome of Scrying is really useful because it allows your battle mages to ignore accuracy penalties, which allows you to just hit more stuff, and also gives you Mental Mark, which makes an enemy really easy to hit with spells and stuff. It's basically like another version of the Weakening Curse. The Tome of Amplification is also super good here. You get Amplified Arrows, which allows your ranged units to bounce their damage around. You get Amplified Minds, which allows you to get more knowledge. Right, there we go. Knowledge. You get Astral Blood, which allows you to get Attunement Fortune. So every time you cast a spell in battle, your race gains critical hit chance. You have Frenzying Focus, which allows your battle mages to gain frenzy whenever they cast a spell. You've Chain Lightning. So I think Tome of Amplification here is just really, really good for the build that we eventually want to go for. Plus we get the Resonance Field, which just gives mana and casting points. It's a really, really good build, particularly for the Amplify Minds. So I'm going to select the Tome of Amplification, and then I am going to take Astral Blood. This will allow me to get Attunement Fortune, which will give my race critical hit chance every time I cast a spell. I'm going to take Astral Blood and then leave it there. We did just finish casting Frost Arrows. It's going to cost me 6 mana per turn. I will enchant it. Now remember, my archers were doing 10 damage per turn when they come out fresh, now, or 10 damage per attack. Now, if I go to a Pursuer, it does 8 base damage and then 4 Frost. So overall an upgrade, particularly because it's now spread damage, which means you need a variety of defensive stats to actually fight against it. Okay, we're really living on this gold income that we've got from picking up things. While I would love to be clearing out these coastal provinces, I think in terms of prioritization, I should be heading east. So Duskwatch has produced a shrine. I would like to build a farm, and so I am going to plonk down a comfy little farm right there. That will allow me to build the experimentation chamber, which again, knowledge and gold, which are 2 things that I sorely lack and require. And then I will build the workshop, which will increase the recruitment and the production income of this city. Cities take an awful lot of investment before they start paying back. I could recruit units from my vassals, however, I don't think I'm going to be able to sustain this level of gold income for much longer. We would like to save up to integrate this city, but I think before we integrate the city, we're probably going to found a city. Although I guess maybe integration now would be better than integration later. Yeah, I might just integrate Darkspire now, as soon as I have the resources for it. So we have a battle quest. They are welcome in my domain of darkness. We have a quest to get a shadow boon. I have to kill some astral thingies. Let me see. So where are these guys? They're down here. I could divert down with my armies to take care of that. I mean, these guys, the worst thing they'll do is run around my territory and pillage a couple of tiles. That will suck, but it's not the end of the world. But potentially clearing a quest could be very powerful. So I'll head down that way. I built palisade walls over in this outpost. Let's go ahead and get stone walls so that we go from 20 fortification to 40. And we built a pursuer, new empire development skill. Let's have a look here. Conquering a city, combat casting points. Here we go. This is important. Impressment. This is going to significantly change our income cost right now. 17 gold and 37 mana per turn. I click this button, boom. Now we're making 43 gold and 47 mana per turn. Very, very good ability in the early game. I could get a second Whispering Stone, or I could recruit a whole bunch of free units. I'm not going to do either of those. I'm going to go ahead and just continue on, save my Imperium. And I met a couple of rulers. So we've met a few people on the map. Fangir, we have met Mishara the Radiant, and we have met Dafal Dia. Not all of them like me, so we'll have to deal with that. Right, let's come down and come to here. Can we clear this with just an auto-resolve? I hope so. We lost too many units, so we'll have to fight it manually. I probably should have cast a Soulbound spell. I keep forgetting to do that for these bigger battles. So we're dealing with a lot of shield units, so the best thing to do would be to get us around. I am going to send 2 shock units around to the right, and otherwise I'm going to create a clog here in the center. I'll put my units behind the clog and make sure we're getting over there. What do you got? 1 in mass healing? I don't want to cast that. Let's go ahead and end our turn. So they should move forward to just outside of our range. We can choose to approach. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to do some Sundering Curses to make them weaker. And then we're also going to do a Baleful Curse to make them a lot weaker. We'll do another Sundering Curse to soften them up even more. Boom. You have the ability to do some zaps. What's the scariest unit in here? Honestly, none of these guys are super particularly scary, so just doing a little bit of damage to them seems fine. Let's bring our shock units around to where they might be able to make a difference. I'm going to move this shock unit forward a tile and push this archer forward so that I can get some weakening stacks on my enemies. And then I think we are good to go. Well, let's see how the enemy comes and fights me. I'm expecting some healing and some buffing. Yeah, okay, so there's a little bit of healing and buffing. Yep, perfect. So he taunted me, came forward and hit me. Hit me. Okay, perfect. My leader is acting of his own volition, which is his right. Let's go ahead and drop a Baleful Curse here to make them weak. You have a lot of potential damage here. Go ahead and blast this guy. You are flanking him. You are also flanking him. This is a great kill. Oh my god, that's so much damage. You can do amazing damage here. You can get a kill. Oh my god, dude, we're just killing. We're bing killing. Kill. Go ahead and blast him, make him soulbound. Get the charge attack. Oh man, what are they gonna do? They're dead. There's nothing they can do. Okay, they can do a little bit of healing. Yeah, okay, the healing makes things a little bit more difficult, but it shouldn't be enough to really make a difference. I'll do one more Baleful Curse just to make things even easier for me. Get behind this kid and flank attack him. Get behind this kid and flank attack him. Then morale is now high. Was it ever low? You could triple zaps. We've got a Sundering Curse. Bring this archer forward. Shoot him. Blap, blap. Let's do the Sundering Curse on you. Bang. Let's do the Sundering Curse on you. Bang. Let's kill you. Easy kill. You can get this kill. Boom, boom, boom. You can come forward, help get this kill. Boom, boom. Perfect. That's what I call some battling right there. Okay, you just got to manipulate. You got to do things. I hope maybe that made sense of how I positioned and used my units and used their abilities and comboed and focus fired and did all that stuff. 12 souls, 24 food, and 24 mana. Ooh, and we finished the quest. So we can get a bunch of food. We can get a bunch of mana or knowledge. We get 66 souls or free skeletons. I gain 3 skeletons. I'm going to go ahead and take the knowledge. That's 280 knowledge. Boom. That is going to finish the research of Astral Blood. I'm going to start a new research. Frenzying Focus is quite good. I'm going to take that. Makes my battle mages stronger. We are building up to a late game composition here, remember? I'm going to cast Astral Blood. This is a minor racial transformation, which will apply to every single unit that is of my race, which includes some of my undead units. So Astral Blood it is. One thing that I would really like is if the outposts actually showed you how long they're going to take to build the thing that you told them to build, rather than relying on you to remember when you built it and how long it's been building it. Right, so let's start marching our armies back to the capital, mainly for the purpose of fighting these guys who are currently pillaging our land. Now, we have a ton of gold on the flow, so let's go ahead and get the workshop to increase the production rate. I'd like a third shock unit for you and a third shock unit for you. So I'll take this shock unit and bring it over there. I'll take this shock unit and bring it over there. I'm going to start the construction of 2 white witches and 2 dark warriors, a pursuer. I'll start the Dark Warrior over here. And we shall see our army now go up to 3 stacks. Your goal is, right, in the early game, is to get your cities down and get to those 3 stacks as fast as you can. We've got the Blizzard, we've got the Bone Golem, or the Amplified Arrows. Amplified Arrows are really good because it makes your range units AoE, and that also means that they inflict any of their negative effects in an AoE. So Amplified Arrows with dark ranged units actually works extremely well. So I think I might take Amplified Arrows here. Yeah, let's do it. This city over here can annex another province. I think the obvious thing to build is a forester. Generally speaking, the pattern you want to follow if you want to develop a city efficiently is to go like 1 farm, 1 quarry, 1 forester. Although typically I like to go like forester, farm, quarry in that order. That's how I would like efficiently develop a city. And then go 2 farms, 2 quarries, 2 foresters, 3 farms, 3 quarries, 3... Like, you just slowly build up. That way you can build all of the buildings. Now, we're kind of more interested in the tech rushy side of things and the gold rushy side of things, but we need to also keep in mind that we're running out of gold. So that's kind of important. But we will go ahead and build the library because it's going to be 10 knowledge per turn, which is a pretty big upgrade. But yeah, I need to take out Stapleton. They're going to be annoying for a very long time. It's my main early game opponent. I'm actually quite happy that I managed to spawn down here in the south of the map, kind of on my own. It's given me a lot of space to sort of build up my empire. A general composition I like to follow up my armies is 2 to 3 melee units and then 3 to 4 range units. That's like a general composition. You can go heavier on ranged or melee if you want, depending on your circumstances. This outpost built its stone walls. Let's immediately found a city here. Remember, we want to get up to our city cap so that we can benefit from those cities as fast as possible. We did just unlock casting reserves. That could be 20 casting combat points and world map casting points. Seems like a reasonable expenditure. However, I am going to hold on to my resources so that I can vassalize the city in a few turns. Probably take me 2-3 turns to integrate them. And then I'll be on a very healthy 4 cities. We just finished researching Amplified Arrows because my tech level is insane right now. 1 more research cycle and we get to the next one. I would love a button that would show me what potential research is hanging around. We could go for Chain Lightning. I'm going to go ahead and tap a shuffle just once. And there it is, Amplify Minds. That's what I was hoping to find, is this. This will give me 20 knowledge per city. Now it does have it is a sustained city spell, so it will cost mana to upkeep. But the negative morale doesn't matter because when we build our Town Hall, the Dread Spire, negative city stability will no longer give economic penalties. And we also will start to be able to build special province improvements, which I haven't really been doing because I focus so hard on tech rushing. But speaking of which, we are now going to go ahead and build the Town Hall here. Building a Town Hall is important because your cities can only annex a certain number of tiles away. You can see here, I do not have the symbols to annex the tiles down here because I have already annexed 1-2 tiles away. Cities have an annex range of 2 in the beginning. Every time you level up your town by building a town hall building, you increase the annex range. So then I'll be able to annex 1 extra ring of tiles out, or 1 extra ring of provinces out. So leveling up this is quite important. It also gives you a little bit of gold and some special effects and unlocks a whole bunch of new things, particularly unlocking tier 2 units. So let's go up to a tier 2 city so that we can get to tier 2 technology. Now, we're going to do a racial transformation here. This will apply to all of our units that has no mana upkeep, which is why racial transformations are fantastic things to get, because unlike unit enhancements, they don't actually cost upkeep. Right, EO, we've got quite a few spells that we need to cast now. I'm going to go ahead and cast Amplified Arrows. Now, I want you to pay very careful attention to Amplified Arrows. Not only does it increase the mana upkeep of a unit, it also increases the gold upkeep of a unit. So be careful as you enhance your units. Things are going to get expensive. This is a tier 2 unit enchantment. I'd also like to do Frenzying Focus. This will also increase the upkeep per unit. So you need to be careful about how many of these spells you're really casting. But yeah, I'm going to do Amplified Arrows and then I'll get to work on Frenzying Focus. We have now unlocked the Right of Forbidden Knowledge, which would allow us to jump along the tech tree, and the Court of Whispers, which would be another Whispering Stone. Darth Meow Meow loses 145 Imperium. My relations with Stapleton return to neutral. So I can concede to Stapleton. I could say, concede we haven't begun to fight. This will give all of my units a slight bonus to morale. Or I can do an affinity check and gain a free bone golem. Bone golems are kind of expensive, but that is a pretty metal choice. So I'm going to do for the bone golem. Looks like somebody settled a outpost over here to my left. That's fine. I'm quite happy with the land that I have. Now, where the hell is my free bone golem? Oh yeah, man, look at that. A free bone golem, which probably means I can cancel one of these dark warriors because I don't need many more melee units in that stack. Bone golems are really cool units because they're actually like a whole pile of skeletons all congealed together, which means when they die, they actually turn into a skeleton unit. So you kind of get 2 units in one when you build a bone golem. They are charge shock units. They're my tier 2 shock units. The only thing is they're a little bit expensive, right? They cost 12 mana per turn plus an extra 2 for the enchantments. So they're quite expensive to maintain these bone golems. Yeah. But they are quite strong. They have charge resistance, so they can't get charged. They're demolishers, so they destroy fortified obstacles. They're immune to morale. They have frost blades. They can consume corpses. They have a better version of consume corpse for even more healing. Bone golems are very, very good frontline shock unit. Okay, the NPC army of Stapleton. I should be able to just auto-resolve this very easily with 0 losses because I have 3 big stacks of units all participating. We collect a bunch of souls. We collect a bit of this stuff. Ooh, I should have... Oh, I messed up there. I should have taken the knowledge extraction skill there. That would have given me knowledge when I kill heroes. That's a big mistake I just made. Yep. We also want stolen power. And we would also really like shadow binding. I'm not in a rush to annex the city of Darkspire. If we can get it to happen, that's great. But if it doesn't happen immediately, I'm not in a rush, like I said. Let's go ahead and get started on a workshop in this city because we want that extra production to get the city going. The nice thing is because we have so much extra draft from our negative alignment, we get a decent boost to our growth because when you're not recruiting a unit, your draft actually gets converted into food at a rate of 20 or 4-1 or 25%, which is like giving us an extra 10 food in the city, which is like having a pasture. So that's pretty damn good, I would say. It's not game breaking, it's not game changing, it's decent. Right, let's get crossing here. And this is actually going to be a fantastic opportunity for us to massively reduce their alignment because we can just run around and pillage all their tiles. And every time you pillage a tile, you get -5 alignment, which will be perfect for us to get to fully negative alignment. Therefore, we'll get the benefit of the dark culture, or the Scions of Evil culture rather, which means that when we're fully negative on alignment, all of our units will be recruited with +1 level. Okay. So now that we've tiered this city up to tier 2, we have a whole lot more options inside this construction menu. And that can be a little bit overwhelming for you. So I'm going to talk about those in the next episode. I hope this has been a pretty good learning experience for you guys. I want to thank you guys very much for watching. I love you all very much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.